Restrictions. You ever hear a voice you can't explain? Not a dream, not a hallucination, just a voice. Real as rain, soft as your own breath, whispering your name through the static. That's where this starts. Back in the fall of 1998, Missouri Highway Patrol logged an unusual incident out on Route 63, somewhere between Jefferson City and the back roads that fold into the Ozarks. It was fog season, the kind where headlights barely push through, where trees blur into ghosts and the whole world feels unfinished. Teeth came in around 2:14 a.m. A trooper named Daniel Mercer, badge number 7402, reported a stranded vehicle near Hollows Bend Bridge. Routine call. Nothing unusual. Except that Mercer never came back. His cruiser was found the next morning, idling by the bridge. Driver's side door locked from the inside. The dashcam had recorded something, 3 seconds of footage, before freezing into a loop of white noise. The last words on his dispatch tape were simple. "This is 7402. I see someone standing on the bridge. Sending location now." Then silence. 7 seconds later, a soft whisper layered under the static. "He's still on the road." The story the news buried under bad weather and local gossip. But the bridge never left the whispers. Truckers avoid it. Locals swear the fog moves differently there. Heavier, like it remembers. You can still find that recording online if you look deep enough. But the version you'll hear tonight isn't just a copy. It's something else. Something that came with the dashcam footage, a second tape found sealed inside the cruiser's glove box. No one claimed to have recorded it. No one should have been able to. But it's in Mercer's voice. Every word. Listen carefully, because the tape begins the night before the call. November 3rd, Route 63. Cold tonight. Roads clear, no signs of deer movement yet. Gonna check the bridge and loop back. Mercer sounds tired. That kind of steady exhaustion that seeps into a man who's worked too many lonely shifts. He talks to the recorder the way people talk to themselves when silence gets too heavy. They say the bridge is haunted. Always found that funny. How people blame ghosts for bad luck, not fog or slick tires. A pause. Then the seatbelt clicks and his breath catches. Still, strange out here. Like the air's listening. Hear gravel under the tires, the sound of rain starting. He hums softly, a tune you might recognize if you grew up around old country radios. Then, the static cuts in. A whisper beneath it. Not real. Real. Not real. Mercer laughs, uneasy. Funny. Thought I heard my own voice. He pulls over near the bridge. You can hear his door open. Wind rushes in, mixed with the hollow moan of the river below. Water's high. Guess I'll log it and head back. A minute passes, only wind and the click of his flashlight. Then the voice recorder slips, hits the ground. A distant splash. He mutters, his words fragment through static. Someone. Standing. There. When the sound returns, he's breathing hard. Sentenced. Man on the bridge. No response. Face down in the fog. His steps echo on the wet boards. Then, a whisper again. clearer this time. "You shouldn't have stopped." After, Mercer gasps. The wind roars, microphone peaking, and then silence. Only the distant wail of a train somewhere far beyond the hills. The tape ends abruptly, but the time shows it continued recording for another 42 minutes. Blank air, except if you amplify the background by about 30 decibels, you can hear something faint. Bootsteps, slow, wet, rhythmic, moving away from the car. And then, at exactly 03:01 a.m., a voice says softly, almost tender, "He's still on the road." That's where the file ends. No edits, no cuts. But a few months later, the new trooper assigned to that same patrol section, a man named Cal Rogers, began filing reports about his cruiser radio picking up random phrases at night. Always the same voice. Always the same words. "This is 7402, Hollows Bend, requesting backup." The number was Mercer's. The shift was the same. And the voice was identical. Locals say the bridge took him. Dispatch says interference. But those who've driven that stretch at night, they'll tell you there's something worse than ghosts on that road. Something that repeats what it hears. Something that remembers your voice. Not real. Real. Not real. Morning after the recording, November 4th, 1998. Trooper Daniel Mercer clocked in at 7 a.m. sharp. His eyes were red, not from drink, not from lack of sleep, but from something deeper, the kind of fatigue that comes when the world stops fitting quite right. He didn't mention the night before, not in his logbook, not to dispatch. But his partner later said he kept glancing at the rearview mirror, like he expected someone to be sitting there. The morning briefing was ordinary. Road checks, traffic reports, a hit-and-run case near Osage. Routine, mundane. The things that make the silence between calls even heavier. When he finally rolled out from headquarters, the sky was already gray. Rain lingered in the air like it hadn't decided whether to fall. The trees bent in slow motion as he took the long route south, toward the part of the county most troopers avoided. He told himself it was just fog that night, just his mind playing tricks. But his hands kept tightening on the steering wheel every time the road curved east. He passed a faded green sign, Hollows Bend, 6 miles. "Unit 7402, confirm status check. 74 copy, Route 63 southbound, all clear." His voice trembled just slightly. He cleared his throat, forcing it steady. There's something about driving alone on those Missouri back roads that makes you feel like time itself forgets you exist. The light changes. The trees thicken. And suddenly you're in a place that could be yesterday, or 50 years ago. Pass her an old diner on the left, half boarded up. Its flickering neon still buzzed "Eats" in faded red letters. He pulled in, more for company than coffee. Inside, the air smelled like grease and rain-soaked asphalt. Only one man sat at the counter, elderly, eyes sunken, hands wrapped around a cup of black coffee. "Morning," Mercer said. Terrorism without turning. "Patrol, huh?" "Yeah, just running the loop." The man's lips twitched. "Loop. Funny word." Mercer scribbled notes on his pad. Weather conditions, nothing unusual. But he noticed something odd. The man's reflection in the window didn't match his movements. His hand stirred the cup, but in the glass the reflection was still. Mercer blistered, looked again. Both versions now matched. He shook it off. Long shifts, he thought. Maybe just the light. But the man spoke again, softer this time. "You're the one from the bridge, ain't you?" Mercer froze. "Excuse me. Last night, Hollows Bend. You stopped." "Permissible. How would you?" But the man only smiled, slow, toothless, too calm. "Don't matter how I know. Just don't go back." Merged, Mercer forced a laugh, though it came out dry. "Bridge is state property. Comes with the job." Symmetry, the man turned then, finally meeting his eyes. "There ain't been a bridge there since '72. Static for 3 seconds, then fades." Mercer blinked again. "What?" The man didn't repeat himself. He just stared at the window. Outside, rain started tapping the glass. Soft, rhythmic, like knuckles. Mercer left cash on the counter and walked out. The man's voice followed him, carried by the sound of rain. "You'll drive that road again. They always do." Door, back in the cruiser, the engine's hum was oddly comforting, familiar, real. He flipped the switch on the dash cam, though he told himself it was just habit. The bridge was supposed to be 6 miles away, but after 4 his GPS began to stutter. The voice cut in and out. Recalculating. Static through headlights carved tunnels through. Headlights carved tunnels through fog so dense it looked alive. At mile marker 142, Mercer saw something that made his breath catch. A road sign, bent at an odd angle, nearly swallowed by weeds. Letters rusted, barely legible, but he could make out the words. Hollows Bend Bridge. Closed. Closed. But he'd crossed it last night. He remembered the creak of the boards, the smell of wet river silt. Touted the car, left the engine running and stepped out. Window sight, only a drop, 20 feet of empty air down to slow-moving black water. The old supports were still there, jutting from the river like broken teeth. He shined his flashlight around. Mud, rain, nothing else. Then something metallic glinted near the edge. He crouched, wiped mud away. It was a police badge, old, rusted. The numbers worn almost smooth, but still faintly visible. 7402. His own badge number. He stumbled back, nearly slipping in the mud. His mind spun. Maybe someone was messing with him. Maybe he'd dropped a spare. Maybe mischief. He never carried a spare. He turned to run back to the cruiser, but froze. The car's headlights were off. He hadn't turned them off. And through the fog he saw a silhouette sitting inside the driver's seat. It looked like him. He shouted. The figure didn't move. He reached for his sidearm, though his hands shook so hard the holster buckle slipped. Then the headlights flicked on again, flooding the mist with white. When he blinked, the seat was empty. He climbed into the car, slamming the door, chest heaving. His own reflection stared back from the rear view, pale, wide-eyed, sweat slick. But for a heartbeat, it smiled. He didn't. Radio 7402, status check. He lifted the mic, voice trembling. All clear. The radio crackled again, quieter this time, almost like an echo. All clear. Except it wasn't his voice. He drove without thinking where. The road, folding and unfolding like a tired breath. The wipers scraped the glass in an even rhythm that should have calmed him, but each pass seemed to erase a layer of the world, not clear it. It felt like he was peeling the highway down to something thinner underneath. He checked the mirror again. Normal face, normal eyes. No smile. He whispered to no one, "Not real. Real. Not real." Like a childish charm against a storm. 7 Photography, be advised, report of a stranded vehicle near Hollows Bend. Caller disconnected. His throat closed. "Copy," he said, and listened to the copy answer back from the other end, just a fraction late. He turned the wheel. The cruiser obeyed, tires hissing as the road funneled into deeper fog. The GPS voice tried to thread a sentence and gave up. Recalculating, recalculating. Then silence. His hand found the dashcam switch. He didn't remember reaching for it. The red light winked to life, small and brave. "The old man in the diner. There ain't been a bridge there since '72. A joke? A lie? A memory not his, he couldn't tell. The patrol handbook said to request backup. The voice in his head said to keep driving. And beneath both, something patient said, "You've already arrived." At mile 42, the fog gathered itself into a wall. He eased off the gas and rolled forward until the world became 2 headlights and the faint glow of the dash. When the wall parted, he saw the stalled car, gray sedan, nose angled toward the gap where the bridge should be. Driver's door open like a mouth inhaling the river's cold breath. The hazard lights were on, each blink painting the fog an unhealthy orange. He steps out, boots slipping slightly on damp gravel. "Highway Patrol," he called, the words eaten by the air. "If you can hear me, stay where you are. I'm approaching." He touched the roof of the sedan like it was a sleeping animal. The engine idled, steady. Inside, the dashboard clock read 2:14. He checked his watch. 9:23. His skin prickled. He reached for the steering column to shut the car off, hesitated, and withdrew his hand. A map lay on the passenger seat, folded wrong, dog-eared. He read upside down. County Roads, 1964 edition. Someone had circled a loop that led nowhere, hand-inked arrows returning to the same black dot. In the bottom margin, a penciled note. "If you pass yourself, do not stop." He swallowed, the sound loud in his own head. Wind crawled into the car and lifted the corner of the map with a papery sigh. He swept his flashlight across the interior. No wallet, no phone, no bag. But the keys on the ring had a little metal tag, MHP, etched with a badge number. He leaned close. 7419. Not his. Not the old rusted number he'd found in the mud. A step in the wrong direction, a step in the right one, he couldn't tell. The river moved beneath everything like a sleeping lung. "Knob," he called to the broken edge. The beam caught on wet timbers and worn bolts. 20 feet below, water carried slow lights. Reflections, he told himself, just reflections. They gathered into a thin oval, entirely still, like a face holding its breath. He aimed the beam away and up to the place where the bridge would have connected to the opposite bank. Just fog, just dark. Something tapped the trunk of his cruiser. Not the sedan, his cruiser. Knock, soft, then again and again. He turned so fast his vision splintered into after-images. The taillights glowed sullen red. The trunk lid was closed. He took 3 steps and laid a palm on the metal. "Who's there?" he said, and immediately wished he had said anything else because the question assumed an answer. The cold sank through his glove. He popped the trunk. The light blinked on, showing order. Flare kit, blanket, first aid, a spare tire he had checked a dozen times because he liked things he could predict. On top, a clipboard he didn't recognize. He lifted it. The first page was his report from last night. except he had never written this report. It described his arrival, his inspection of the bridge that wasn't there, and then, in his handwriting that leaned too far right when he was nervous. Saw uniformed subject in fog, subject raised hand, advised to leave road. Did not comply. He stared at the sentence until it became a trick of ink. Behind him, the sedan's hazard lights kept time. He took his pen and added a neat line through the sentence, then wrote above it, "No subject present." The pen skittered. The ink beaded and refused to sink like the page was coated. He pressed harder, annoyed at the small human thing of a stubborn pen in the middle of this. The page tore. "Okay," he said to the air as if he were the unreasonable one. "Okay." He shut the trunk and the sound came back to him as though bounced off cliffs that weren't there. The walkie on his shoulder crackled. "Unit 7402, status." His thumb hovered. He felt the answer click into place behind his teeth the way habitual words do. "All clear," he said, and as the last syllable faded, a second voice, his own voice, layered it perfectly. "All clear." He looked down at the gravel. 4 boot prints led from his driver's door to the trunk. Another set led away, heel toe, toward the edge where the bridge would have begun. He had not made them. They were his size. Distant. "Hello," he called again, but softer, a child in a museum of bones. The fog opened like a curtain and he saw a figure standing in the space where air should have been. A uniform, a hat, the black gleam of a radio mic on a shoulder. The figure was too still. His hand lifted automatically in the slow, open-palm gesture officers use to reassure. The figure lifted its hand the same way, same speed, same angle. He dropped his hand. It dropped its hand. He inhaled. It inhaled. Not real. Real. Not real. His flashlight beam trembled and the beam in the opposite hand trembled too. A lighthouse calling itself home. "Identify," he said. Then, "Identify, officer." The form said nothing. He stepped forward 1 boot slide to test the ground. He expected emptiness, a sick fall. The ground held. Another step. Another. The distance didn't change. The figure remained exactly the same size, as if distance were not a property the world possessed. His radio hissed, an almost word. It stretched and snapped back like a rubber band. He raised the mic. "Dispatch, I have visual on." The static grew teeth and bit through the rest. He lowered the mic and the world sighed, relieved to be rid of language. He tried a different approach. "You okay?" he asked the figure that was him and wasn't. "Are you lost?" A small, almost polite nod. Then the figure's left hand moved to the radio on its shoulder and pressed the button. He heard himself say, "This is 7402, Hollows Bend, requesting backup." He hadn't said it. He was hearing himself saying it now. He looked down. His own thumb was exactly where it should be to have pressed the mic, except he didn't remember doing it. The words hung between them, a wire. The 7's hazard lights died. The sudden dark made the fog glow from within. The eyes of the figure, his own, caught and held the faintest light, not a reflection, but an attention. He felt seen in an exact, clinical way, as if measured. He didn't notice the map had slid from the sedan until it nudged his boot. He stooped and picked it up. The pencil note was different now, as if someone had finished a sentence he hadn't finished thinking. "If you pass yourself, do not stop. If you stop, do not speak. If you speak, do not listen." He read it twice and realized he'd read it before, just not with his eyes. The figure raised its hand again, palm out. Stop. He froze. It lowered the hand and pointed, not at him, not at the road, but at the empty space where the bridge would have spanned the river. The gesture was gentle, a warning, or an invitation, or both. Not real, he whispered. Real, not real. He took one step toward the gesture, and the fog rushed in his mouth and ears like water. He could taste silt, cold iron, old wood. He could taste a year that was not his. 64, 72, 98. He could taste numbers. He blinked and the figure was closer, not by distance, but by attention. It felt like standing inside the echo of his own name. Behind him, his cruiser door eased open. He hadn't touched it. The interior light came on, a small square of yellow. The radio whispered something that didn't form into language and then settled into a faint human exhalation. He turned, ready to run back, end this, drive away. His keys were already in his hand, though he didn't remember taking them from the ignition. And sitting in the driver's seat, in the generous yellow of light, in the generous yellow of the dome light, was Daniel Mercer. He didn't start or scream. He just looked at himself the way people look at photographs of cousins they never met. Interested, patient, a little tender. The Mercer in the seat lifted one hand and tapped the steering wheel rhythmically, a metronome for a song without notes. Then he smiled. It was not unkind. It was not kind. It was recognition without relief. The sound didn't come from a throat. It came from the fabric of the empty bridge, from the water under it, from the map paper, from the badge in the mud he hadn't realized he was still holding. It braided itself into words only because he needed them to be words. You shouldn't have stopped. He closed his eyes. He counted 4 heartbeats. He opened them. The seat was empty again. The dome light went out. His cruiser door clicked shut with a soft finality, as if a polite host had decided to end the evening. He was alone, except for the copy of himself standing in the fog and the copy of his voice on the radio and the copy of his footprints leading toward a bridge that was a rumor. He remembered training, retreat if unsafe. He remembered the diner, loop. He remembered nothing with enough authority to use it. Rising, falling like breath. Dispatch, he said carefully, like someone testing a slippery stair. I have an abandoned vehicle and possible visual of an officer, requesting verification of units in the area. The answer came after a beat too long. 742, you are the only unit in the area. He waited for the echo. It didn't come. For the first time since arriving, the silence felt like what silence should be. Clean, ordinary, solvable. He let himself believe it. He took a step back from the edge. He took another. The figure did not follow. It only watched. He lifted the mic again. Copy. I'm clearing the scene. I'm clearing the scene. The words tasted like surrender and survival at the same time. He turned to the sedan to shut off the engine, to leave a note, to create some human evidence that this had been a place and not a dream. His hand reached for the key. His eyes fell to the dashboard clock. 2:14. Premier had his watch. 2:14. Missiles, he listened to the world. No birds, no distant train. Only water breathing and a light scraping from somewhere under the car, like a branch caught and dragged by the axle. Except there were no trees that close. He crouched and peered beneath. Missions. Just the underside of a car and the lonely sound of a thing that wasn't there. He stood and shut the door. The engine died. The hazard lights did not return. The fog inhaled. The figure on the knot bridge raised its hand a final time as if to bless or condemn. Then, with the patience of weather, it faded. Not away. Through. Wind. Howling, then easing. He walked to his cruiser and opened the door and sat and put both hands on the wheel and did not start the engine. He stared at his own reflection in the dark windshield until it became less a face than a suggestion. He whispered, because whispers felt safer than speech. Not real. Real. Not real. The radio clicked on by itself. "He's still on the road," his voice said, soft as a confession. He looked at the mic in his hand. He hadn't pressed it. He didn't answer. He didn't breathe for a count of 5. Then he started the engine and the red light on the dashcam winked and stayed on, and the road ahead opened like a question he would have to answer again and again, until it learned him by heart. Brawn blurred into noon, though Mercer couldn't remember the sun ever rising. The fog had only thinned enough to turn from gray to silver. He drove the highway again, slower this time, replaying the night in his head like a dispatch tape stuck on loop. Each mile marker felt misplaced, each turn wider than before. He parked at the substation. The building was small, windowless, its concrete sweating from the humidity. He told himself he'd file a report, keep it factual, nothing more. But his fingers wouldn't move. Every word he wrote felt false before the pen touched paper. Teeth creaked open. Sergeant Heller stepped in, chewing a toothpick. "You look like hell," he said. "Rough shift?" "Couldn't sleep," Mercer answered. "Strange interference last night. Maybe a power line issue." "Yeah, maybe," Heller said. "We get that sometimes near Hollow's Bend. Static messes with everything." "Static," Mercer echoed. "Radio goes funny. Some say you can pick up voices from old patrol frequencies, but that's just trucker talk." Heller chuckled, but it died fast when Mercer didn't join in. "You all right, Danny?" Mercer forced a smile. "Fine." But his hands trembled as he gathered his notes. On the page, his writing looked unfamiliar, each letter leaning a little too far left, like it was falling. He decided to visit archives after his shift, just to prove to himself there was a logical reason, an echo, a prank, a fault in transmission, anything human. The records office smelled like paper left in rain, thick and stale. A single fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead. Behind the counter sat a woman old enough that her uniform seemed older than she was. Her name tag said, Clara. "Simmons. Need to check a file," Mercer said. "Old case, maybe pre-80. "Pre-digital," she sighed. "That's the basement." She pushed a clipboard toward him. "Sign and take a flashlight." He signed. The pen squeaked on damp paper. The basement breathed cold. Rows of metal shelves stretched like ribs, each crammed with cardboard boxes labeled by year. He found 1964, 1970, 1972, all tagged incident reports, missing personnel. He ran his hand along the dust, tracing badge numbers printed on faded forms. 7419, 7420, 7402. He stopped. He shouldn't have found his own number in a box marked Deceased Officers, 1964 to 1972. The file was thin. Inside, a photo of a young trooper, square jaw, same eyes, same faint scar on the brow. The name? Elias Rowan, badge number 7402. His breath hitched. He checked again. His badge was the same number. The file said missing in action, presumed drowned during patrol at Hollows Bend Bridge. He turned the photo over. A note scrawled in pen. If you pass yourself, do not stop. He dropped the photo. It fluttered to the floor, face up, the same eyes staring back through 50 years of dust. Find what you needed? Clara called down from the stairs. He forced steadiness into his voice. Just an old misfile. She laughed lightly. Those boxes are haunted, I swear. Every year something moves itself. When Mercer looked down again, the photo was gone. That night, he didn't go home. He drove. No destination, just the rhythm of tires and rain. The radio flickered between stations, country, news, silence, his own breathing. Then a click. Unit 7402 respond. He lifted the mic. Go ahead. We have your location near Hollows Bend. Confirm status. He frowned. Negative. I'm 20 miles west. Copy. Confirming you're at Hollows Bend. The voice wasn't dispatch. It was him. He dropped the mic. It swung against the dashboard, tapping steady as a metronome. He pulled over, headlights slicing through mist. The bridge wasn't there, but the reflection of the cruiser's lights rippled in the river below, as though shining off glass, not water. He's speeding off the ignition. The headlights stayed on. Slowly the static grew again, whispering across the radio in loops of broken syllables. Requesting backup, backup, backup. He reached for the mic, stopped halfway. His fingers brushed something cold. His own badge, resting on the seat beside him, identical down to the worn edges. The metal felt wet. Not real, he whispered. Real, not real. The road behind him stretched empty. He could see miles of nothing through the mirror. But faintly, far back, another pair of headlights blinked on, too distant, too still. They didn't move closer. They just stayed there, waiting. Microsoft, he started the engine, trying to outrun something that didn't seem to chase him. The odometer rolled back 1 mile, then another, then stopped altogether. Each time he passed a road sign, it read the same words. Hollows Bend, 6 miles. He slowed. The world had become a loop. He looked to the mirror again. The second cruiser was closer now, matching his speed. He picked up the radio. Dispatch. I've got visual on another unit behind me. Can you confirm who's out here? No answer. Only his own voice repeating back with lagged distortion. Can you confirm who's out here? The headlights behind him blinked once, then went dark. Mercer gripped the wheel until his knuckles went white. His heart thudded so loud it filled the cabin. He whispered to himself like a prayer. Not real. Real. Not real. Then quietly from the passenger seat, another voice answered. Salmon, it's real. Mercer turned his head, slow, as if speed might break him, and saw a shadow seated beside him. No face, just the weight of something wearing his outline. He slammed the brakes. The car skidded sideways, tires screaming. When it stopped, the passenger seat was empty again. The only thing left was the faint sound of breathing. On the recording, Not in the world. He stared into the darkness until it blinked back, and in the reflection of the windshield, he saw himself smiling again. He told himself to drive home. He told himself the station could wait, that exhaustion was the worst of it. He said the words out loud because silence had started to feel like an invitation. "You're tired, Daniel. That's all. Tired." His voice sounded unfamiliar in the confined air of the cruiser. The rain outside softened into drizzle, light tapping against the glass like fingers tracing letters he couldn't read. He glanced at the clock, 2:14. It had been 2:14 for an hour. He shut the radio off. The static continued anyway, a quiet pulse beneath the hum of the engine. He reached for the volume knob, twisted it hard left. The hum stayed. He decided to write the report now, force order onto the night. The notepad balanced on his knee, pen ready, but the first line came out wrong. Incident, 11:04:98. Subject, myself. He stared at the ink until it blurred. Then, slowly, the pen moved on its own, scrawling in looping script not his. He's still on the road. He dropped the pad. The radio clicked. A voice spoke through the static, soft, polite, like dispatch reading from a script. "Unit 7402, what is your location?" "Route 63, Mercer whispered. "Crimson, Hollows Bend." "No," he said louder. "Negative, I passed it miles ago." "Copy. You are approaching Hollows Bend." The world wizened to the world, was moving wrong. Trees leaned inward like tall gray spectators. The same billboard kept reappearing every 2 minutes, an advertisement for a motel that hadn't existed for 20 years. Stay the night, wake refreshed. He turned the wheel, slowed, accelerated again. No matter the direction, the billboard waited ahead. Not real, real, not real. The headlights found an animal at the edge of the road, a deer, motionless. He slowed to avoid it, but the deer didn't move, didn't blink. Its chest didn't rise. As he passed, the thing turned its head, mechanical, too smooth. Its eyes were glass. The reflection followed his rearview mirror until the darkness closed in again. Soft from outside, though he's inside the car. He looked to the passenger seat. The damp notepad had vanished. In its place sat the rusted badge he'd found by the riverbank. He reached for it, fingers brushing the metal. Warm, beating faintly, like a pulse. He dropped it, and it clattered against the floor mat with a hollow sound that didn't stop right away. It echoed longer than it should have. He killed the headlights and let the dark swallow everything. The hum persisted. In the faint reflection of the windshield, something moved, another face beside his own, a ghost of the driver's mirror. It blinked first. "Stop," he whispered. The reflection mouthed it too. He stepped out into the rain. The world was silent except for the ticking of the engine cooling. The highway stretched on both sides, unbroken. He shone his flashlight back the way he'd come. No sign of the billboard, no sign of the deer. Just mist and distance. He turned the light forward. Missions was there again. Full length, wooden boards slick with rain, guardrails shining like fresh paint. His breath caught. He knew it couldn't be, yet the shape of it pulled him closer like gravity. He took one step, then another. Each board groaned beneath his weight. Halfway across, the air grew colder. The mist thickened until it became a wall. He reached a hand forward and the fog pulsed at his touch, as if the air itself had skin. A whisper behind him. You shouldn't have stopped. Soaked chest slicing through fog, and saw himself at the beginning of the bridge facing him. The other Mercer stood still, soaked through, eyes pale. "Who are you?" he demanded. The other one smiled faintly. "You." Stiffness. Without moving its lips, the words filled the air. "You never left." 3. He backed away step by step. The boards underfoot began to ripple like shallow water. He looked down. The wood had become reflection. Beneath the surface he saw headlights gliding across, his cruiser moving silently below him, tires spinning in water that wasn't there. He ran. His boots slapped the surface, splashing light instead of rain. He didn't look back, though he could hear footsteps matching his pace, his own, closer. Footsteps double-layered. The bridge ended, not in road but in void, black river far below. He skidded to a stop, chest heaving. The echo behind him slowed too, panting at the same rhythm. He felt it lean closer, warm breath against the back of his neck. He turned. Nothing. Only fog and the faint outline of a badge floating at eye level. His badge. He reached for it, hand trembling. When his fingers closed, the world snapped back. He was inside the cruiser again. Simmons' seatbelt fastened, engine idling. Clock. 2:14. "Unit 7402, status check." His hand went to the mic automatically. "All clear," he said. Silence. Then, his voice delayed half a breath. "All clear." He stared at the dashboard. The notepad was back. The words on the page had changed. Smith. He pressed his palms into his eyes until colors bloomed behind the lids. He stayed that way for a long time, measuring breath. When he opened them, he wasn't sure if the glow on the horizon was sunrise or just another trick of the fog. He drove until the road stopped pretending to end. Hours later, or maybe minutes, the radio whispered again, this time almost kind. "It's okay, Danny. Just finish the shift." He didn't ask who it was. The voice sounded like his father, dead 15 years. Like his own conscience echoing back. He spoke softly to no one. "Not real. Real. Not real." Sickness ahead parted, revealing a sign. Hollows Bend, 6 miles. He laughed, a single broken sound that filled the car like a cough. Nervous laugh. Now what the old man had meant. The road didn't take you once. It kept you. The laugh turned into something else, a breath caught between relief and dread. The voice on the radio joined in, chuckling faintly, perfectly in sync. Statted. The sun never rose. Or maybe it did, and Mercer simply forgot what daylight looked like. The fog had settled into something heavier. Not air, not mist, but memory. It carried the weight of everything that had ever gone wrong on that stretch of highway. He hadn't gone home in 3 days. At least, that's what his logbook said. The entries were neat, deliberate, written in his hand, but he didn't remember writing any of them. Each report described the same events. Patrol initiated, Route 63. Weather poor, fog increasing. Then always the same final line. Visual confirmation of self. He stared at those words until they blurred into ink blots. Then he tore out the page and started again, but the next page already contained the same text, written before he'd touched it. He looked up. The radio was on again, though he hadn't powered it since the second night. The voice that came through wasn't human anymore. Not distorted, not digital, just wrong. "Unit 7402, report condition." Condition, he whispered. Tired. Report condition. He hesitated. Alive. Copy. Pending confirmation. Then silence. He stepped out of the car and stretched his legs. The fog rolled across the asphalt like breath from a sleeping animal. He could barely see 5 feet ahead. The guardrail appeared and vanished, appeared again, like it was breathing too. He thought he heard another engine, faint, mechanical, steady. But when he turned, it came from every direction at once. He called out, "Who's there?" No response, but the fog shifted, revealing the faint glow of headlights moving toward him. Relief flooded through him. Dispatch must have sent backup, he murmured. He approached slowly. The car's outline became clearer, a patrol cruiser, same model as his. The headlights flickered once, twice, then steadied. As the vehicle stopped, the door opened. No sound, no motion, just open. He peered inside. Empty. Except for a radio still humming, and a uniform hat resting neatly on the passenger seat. He reached in and turned over the hat's brim. The name tag beneath read, E. Rowan. He froze. His heartbeat became the only real sound left in the world. Elias Rowan, he whispered. The missing officer. The radio clicked. Welcome back. He stepped back, boots scraping asphalt. The headlights dimmed to a dull amber. The cruiser's dash camera light blinked red, recording. And through the fog behind the windshield, Mercer saw the faint outline of a man sitting in the driver's seat, unmoving. Himself. His pulse pounded so loud he thought he'd burst. He turned to run, but every direction he faced looked identical. Same asphalt, same railing, same fog. The voice from the radio followed him. You're still on patrol, Danny. Finish the call. He spun, disoriented. This isn't real, he shouted. This isn't. Not real. Real. Not real. It echoed back from every direction, from the fog, from the second cruiser, from his own throat. He climbed back into his car and locked the doors. His breath fogged the glass. The headlights of the other cruiser blinked again, now closer. It had moved. Stay away, he whispered. The radio hissed. You already did. He grabbed the mic, voice shaking. Dispatch, I need someone to confirm my... But the sound of another mic crackled over him, his own voice speaking over his words. I need someone to confirm my... Stop it, he hissed. Stop it, it repeated. He slammed the mic into the dashboard. The static fell silent. But from the back seat came a sound like paper tearing. Quiet, deliberate. He turned, flashlight in hand. The back seat was empty, but the torn fragments of his logbook fluttered there, each page bleeding words he hadn't written. Hollows Bend isn't a place. It's a time. He's still on the road. You never left. Mercer's flashlight flickered. For a second, the interior of the cruiser was filled with other silhouettes, dozens of them, all seated, all wearing uniforms, all looking straight ahead. Their faces shimmered like reflections in oil. He blinked. They were gone. But the smell lingered. Wet wool, gasoline, river water. He reached to start the engine, but his hand froze. The ignition key was gone. In its place, wedged into the slot, was a small strip of metal, a badge fragment, etched with half a number. 402. He whispered to himself. Not real. Real. Not real. The fog outside shifted again, revealing not one bridge, but many, dozens of them, overlapping like reflections in broken glass. Each carried the faint shimmer of a patrol car halfway across. Each shimmered with headlights. Each car held a single man. Each man was him. They were all moving in slow synchrony, turning their heads, gripping their wheels, whispering into their radios. He pressed his palms to his ears, but the sound came from inside. Then, faintly, beneath it all, a new voice. Soft, steady. "You finished the shift, Danny. Time to come home." The fog lit up with the color of dawn, pale and wrong. He saw figures on the bridge, lined shoulder to shoulder, all wearing the same uniform. Their faces were blurred, but their mouths moved in perfect time. He's still on the road. He's still on the road. He's still... Mercer opened his eyes. He was standing on the bridge, alone. His cruiser idled behind him, door open, engine humming. He didn't remember stepping out. He didn't remember walking this far. He looked down. The boards beneath him were soaked, dark. Not water, not quite. The badge fragment was gone. In the distance, a faint red light blinked through fog. The dashcam, recording. He whispered to it, "If anyone finds this, don't stop. Don't." The rest of the sentence dissolved into static, then returns in low waves, like breath, and over it, faint and distant, the voice of dispatch repeated in a tone of exhausted ritual. "Unit 7402, confirm location." He opened his mouth. The response came from somewhere else. "Hollows Bend Bridge." Unit 742 to confirm location. Swallowing everything except the faint glow of Mercer's cruiser lights. He stood still on the bridge, boots slick, breath trembling in short clouds. Each exhale came out slower than the last, as though even the air was losing interest in keeping him alive. He turned toward the car, but it wasn't there anymore. Just the hum of an idling engine he couldn't see. He called out, first with authority, then desperation. "Hello? This is Trooper Daniel Mercer, badge 7402. If you can hear me, respond." The fog answered. 7402. Respond. His own voice, folded and stretched until it cracked on the edges. He spun, scanning the void with his flashlight. The beam struck the opposite end of the bridge, a figure standing there, motionless. Its outline blurred by distance, uniform gleaming with damp. He shouted again, "Identify!" The figure raised its hand, palm out. "Stop," then lowered it. The motion came a second too early, like it knew what he'd say next. He stepped forward. The boards groaned beneath him, not like wood, but like lungs exhaling. Each step closer, the fog thickened, light bending wrong around the edges. The figure didn't move, but the space between them shrank faster than it should have, every stride doubling in distance. Halfway across, the air went colder. His breath froze mid-sentence. The world smelled like river ice and something older, iron, mildew, and ozone. He stopped when the beam caught the face. It was him, not a reflection, not a shadow. Himself, standing in the same soaked uniform, the same badge shining dull under the flashlight. The other Mercer's mouth moved first. "You came back." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You're not me." "We all say that." "What do you want?" "To go home." "Then go." "Can't. You haven't left yet." The boards trembled underfoot. Water below lapped at the edges, black and soundless. He could see faces in it now, rippling pale shapes just under the surface, their mouths moving in slow unison. "You shouldn't have stopped." He took another step. The world tilted slightly as though the bridge had decided to inhale again. "What is this?" he whispered. "The road, remembering." He looked past the other version of himself. Rows of cruisers lined across invisible roads, headlights dim, engines idling. Men inside each one, motionless, mirrors of him. Every face identical, every breath timed with his own. He tried to step back. The bridge creaked louder, boards stretching. The other Mercer followed, a single mirrored step forward. "Stop!" he shouted. The voice that came out of his mouth wasn't his anymore. "Stop!" They spoke in unison. "Why me?" he asked through clenched teeth. "Because you listened." He reached into his jacket pocket. The damp notepad was there again. He opened it with trembling fingers. On every page, in the same thin handwriting, were dates, patrol dates, case numbers, times. The last entry wasn't his. It read, November 3rd, 1964. Trooper Elias Rowan. Status, en route. And beneath that, you are next. He dropped the notepad. It fell without sound, sinking into the fog as though the air were water. The other Mercer extended a hand, palm open. "Come on, Danny. You'll feel better once it's over." He stepped back again. Over? The shift, the drive, the waiting. It all ends once you finish. The bridge moaned again. In the fog, something began to move. Faint outlines of men walking toward him from all directions. Uniforms worn and waterlogged, badges glinting under non-existent light. He saw names stitched on their chests. Names from his nightmares, from reports decades old. Rowan, Heller, Thompson. Names that ended in missing, presumed drowned. "Get away from me!" he shouted, backing up, flashlight shaking in his hand. The shapes didn't stop, they just kept walking, slow and inevitable, faces flickering between features he recognized and ones he didn't. His own voice joined theirs, not through his throat, but from somewhere deeper. "He's still on the road. He's still on the road. He's still—" "Stop it!" Mercer screamed. He swung the flashlight, the beam cutting through them, and when the light touched their faces, they dissolved like smoke. But behind each vanished shape, another waited. He turned to run, but there was no bridge anymore, just road. Endless, straight, repeating mile marker 142 again and again. The fog didn't move now. It followed him, breathing down his neck, whispering with his own voice. He reached for the mic, desperate. "Dispatch, please. Anybody. Tell me I'm real." A pause. Then, "You're real, Danny. Not real. Real. Not real. Real." Each voice stacked on top of the last until they became a low, mechanical chant. The windshield fogged from the inside with each repetition, writing "real" over and over until he couldn't see. He clawed at the glass with shaking hands. When the fog cleared, he wasn't in the cruiser anymore. He was standing in the records room basement again, flashlight flickering. The boxes around him were different, newer, cleaner. A faint hum came from the ceiling light. He turned slowly. On the floor, stacked neatly against the wall, were dozens of old police badges, rusted, tarnished, each resting on top of a folder. His eyes found the nearest one. He knelt and opened his own file. The photo showed his face, same scar, same tired eyes. The date underneath read November 4th, 1998. Status: missing in action. He felt warmth on his cheek. The flashlight flickered once, twice. Then a voice, gentle, almost pitying. "You finished the shift." He looked up. The other Mercer stood at the far end of the room, smiling. "Time to rest." "No," he whispered. "No, not yet." But his voice sounded far away now, hollowed out by static. The flashlight died. The dark filled in everything else. Then, silence. His last words recorded on the tape came out slurred, soft. "This is 7402, Hollows Bend. Requesting backup." The voice that answered was his own. "Backup en route." Like breath caught in the wires, the tape begins with silence. Then a faint click, recorder on. A single inhale, slow, careful, as if the speaker isn't sure whether he's allowed to breathe. Amron's voice, calm but hollow. "Case file. Missouri Highway Patrol, Unit 7402. Trooper Daniel Mercer. Recovered November 5th, 1998. 0600 hours. Menstrual breath." Recording appears to capture final transmission. Subject's cruiser was found abandoned near Hollows Bend Bridge. Doors locked, engine running, headlights on. In there's the faint hum of a projector in the background, or maybe a ceiling fan, but it cycles like the pulse of something alive. The voice continues, slower now. The dashcam recovered from the scene contained an image. Frame shows the subject seated behind the wheel, facing the camera. Timestamp reads 02:14:03. After that, the image begins to degrade. The subject's mouth moves for approximately 7 seconds, but no sound is recorded. When the frame stabilizes, the vehicle is empty. The voice hesitates, a long pause filled with the sound of someone wetting dry lips. Investigators reported hearing radio interference during playback. The same phrase repeating in the background. The tape stutters, and then another older voice cuts in. Mercer's voice, layered under static, low and tired. "He's still on the road." The recording shakes with faint feedback, as though he's leaning toward the mic. I listen to it for 2 hours. The phrase keeps changing, slightly. Filiation, the tone, the pause. Sometimes, I think it's responding. The voice, I brought the tape home once, just to study it. My wife heard it playing in the kitchen that night. She swore she heard my voice saying her name. He exhales hard, gathering himself. I returned the tape the next morning, left it sealed in evidence. But the log says it's still checked out under my name. Another long pause. Fishing shifts in the background, a faint rhythmic tapping, like knuckles on a metal table. The bridge was demolished in 1972 after repeated flood damage. There's nothing left there now, but every few months motorists report seeing patrol lights through the fog, always at 2:14. The tape skips, an audible cut. Then the same voice, more strained. Dispatch keeps receiving a phantom call. Unit 7402 requesting backup. Theft, they trace it, and it always pings the same coordinates. The same hollow stretch of highway that isn't there anymore. He tries to keep talking, but the tape begins to bend his voice, dragging syllables backward. We logged 57 reports, all the same words. He's still on the road. After 27, the whisper is Mercer's again, threaded through the static like a lullaby. Not real. Real. Not real. The investigator's breathing accelerates. The recorder picks up movement, the sound of papers falling, a chair scraping. Who's there? The investigator Charles Heller. If anyone finds this. The rest drowns in distortion. The hum deepens into something almost like water rushing through pipes. Then, a familiar click. The sound of a police mic engaging. Unit 7402, Hollows Bend, requesting backup. Another voice overlaps, Heller's own trembling, repeating the line word for word. Unit 7402, Hollows Bend, requesting backup. Radio feedback shrieks once, then cuts to silence. For a long time, nothing. Just the low hiss of magnetic tape running on empty. Then, one last sound. Footsteps gravel, slow, steady. Limbs. The steps stop beside the microphone. A soft exhale, almost a laugh. You don't, do you? The tape should end there, but it doesn't. The wind howling distant, then nearer, as if moving down a tunnel. You can hear the faint open-door chime of a cruiser. A seatbelt clicks. An engine starts. The radio crackles alive one final time. Unit 7402, confirm location. The reply comes from far away, muffled but clear. Route 63. All clear. Then, faint, overlapping. Dozens of versions of the same voice, all repeating out of sync. All clear. All clear. All clear. Static hum rises, warps, folds into silence. Tape slows, stretching sound until every breath becomes a drawn-out echo. The hum fades to almost nothing. Then, one last whisper, right against the microphone, soft as a breath. Throwable. And if you're hearing this, it already knows you. Static hum faint return, like wind crawling back through the cables. Flight to black. Pay to black. He's still on the road. Fading to black.